again over in London, and it is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. 5.5 as we record this early on Saturday morning. 48.5 is the total. Adam, we saw this Bills team look like a just absolute truck last week. Josh Allen has, since the first game in which we were like, oh boy, here goes Josh Allen, hucking it all over the field again. And instead, all he's done is thrown 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. The guy's absolutely fantastic. And then the Jags go over to London. They get to stay over in London, get the job done last week in all of this. 5.5, kind of that dead-ish number that we have on the Bills.
I feel like this is a game, Matt, that you have to decide what your eyes have seen versus what the numbers tell you on each side of this, right? Like, the Bills have done it. We've watched them do it this year in what was supposed to be the game of the young season. They won by 28 against one of the best teams in the league. So that being the case, I've seen it with Buffalo. Now, on the other side of this, with Jacksonville, you and I were both very confident in Jacksonville last week, and I felt very happy about getting that win. However, I'm still not sure that Jacksonville is on the level that we thought Jacksonville was going to be before this season. They still struggled offensively. They just got the better side of turnovers last week against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons look pretty rough. So there are a lot of things in the favor of the Jacksonville Jaguars that tell you that they should be getting things back together here. Their line gets back the way that it was intended to be before the season. Cam Robinson returns at left tackle. That strengthens multiple positions as you kick a player back inside. And now you've got multiple positions shored up. On the other side of this with Buffalo, now you have to figure out what this defense looks like without Trey White. And that is an enormous loss for Buffalo. They might add Von Miller back in this week. We'll see. We'll see if he's back up to full speed. Long story short, I actually make this game closer to Buffalo 3.5 because of the fact that my prior on Jacksonville remains strong. I still think, as I was saying, that we're going to see what's inside the numbers for Jacksonville before long. And obviously, this is a terrible travel spot for Buffalo as they lose a home game, having to go over to London and play a Jacksonville team that's already there. I don't have anything on it right now. The questions about the Buffalo defense in particular and about the Jacksonville play calling are enough for me to want to sit this one out and see if I can learn a little bit more.
Steven, we have Trevor Lawrence. We mentioned this last week that Trevor Lawrence, if you look at the advanced statistics, has actually been pretty good so far this year. He is still the second overall graded passer, according to Pro Football Focus, behind only Tua. And I think if a 6 popped, I would probably go ahead and take it on the Jags based off of kind of what I thought about this team heading into the season, what I still think is a pretty good offense that is maybe a defense that needs to catch up a little bit more, but you can't run the ball on the Jags, right? And so you have to throw it on them. And can Josh Allen do that? Absolutely. But I do think that them being so good against the run does at least take away a little bit of the element of this. Buffalo offense has been so good so far. That being said, if Buffalo went out there and thumped the Jags, probably wouldn't surprise me. The Buffalo might be the best team in the NFL. I mean, like we're still having that debate right now. We're still having that discussion as to which team's the best team in the NFL. Buffalo over the last few weeks has certainly looked like the part of that team. So I think 6 is too much. I think I would take the 6 if it were to pop between now and kickoff, but wouldn't surprise me if this was a run out in favor of Buffalo.
My concern with Trevor Lawrence in this matchup is that he is 29th in the NFL so far this year in completion percentage against zone defense, and the Bills play 75% zone defense. And I agree that despite the win in London last week against Atlanta, I did not feel like they got back on track and were firing close to all cylinders like we saw with this offense last year. It's still Press Taylor calling plays. They had 4.8 yards per play in the first half. They were a complete beneficiary of the Desmond Ridder pick 6. They were a little bit better in the second half, 5.3 yards per play, but that's still below average for the NFL. So do I think they can take advantage of this banged up Bills secondary? I think there's a chance of that for sure, because without Trey White, just to put some numbers on this, with Christian Benford at corner, who was limited in practice all week. He's also questionable. Dane Jackson's the other corner. According to PFF, among the 87 NFL perimeter cornerbacks with at least 35 snaps on the outside, Benford and Jackson have a respective 4.7% and 5.4% explosive pass plays allowed rate. Both of those rank outside the top 60. And Benford's yards per coverage snap allowed and Jackson's yards per coverage snap allowed both rank outside the top 40. So Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk should be able to take advantage of this matchup. It is also just a completely unprecedented travel spot. Like, we've never seen a team stay in London, then have a team have to come over to London. If I'm Buffalo, I'm kind of upset at the league that they put them in the situation for a Buffalo home game on the schedule, mind you. So I don't know what to quantify for that. I don't know if that's worth 1 point. I don't know if that's worth 2 points. I'm not sure. But I agree with you, at least numerically, Matt. 6 would be a buy point for Jacksonville for me. But I mean, it's based on numbers and blind faith that we see some better version of the Jacksonville offense against the banged up secondary.
Yeah, I have to assume that there's some sort of advantage to staying over there. I don't know how to quantify that because, again, we don't have any data to back this up. I just have to assume that your body being on that schedule for longer than Buffalo's will, that's good. You hear some of these NFL guys talking on some of these other programs about, hey, man, have you ever gone to London? It sucks, right? Like, it's like you hear it all the time. Like, these guys are losing. It's not the greatest thing. And so if you do have that week to adjust, I have to think it's worth something, but also these NFL teams are smart. They're optimizing when to travel, how to travel, what to do to make sure that their bodies are on time and on rhythm and all that. So I don't know. I think 6 is going to be the buy point for me on the Jags based off, again, I have to hold on to at least a little bit of my priors, but I've gotten to the point in the season where I'm starting to kick those to the curb. But I was really high on the Jags, was really good. Think that this team was really good at the end of last year and that there has to be some sort of that left in the tank, but maybe there's not. And maybe I'll have to kind of get off of what I think about this Jags team. This division is interesting. We'll talk more in depth about this division a little bit later in the pod because maybe there's some other angles here to play in all of this.